Elizabeth and Cody, nice to have you up here, and appreciate the partnership that we've been able to form in relatively short order this year. As I mentioned, Elizabeth came and joined us at the 2021 DART Symposium. We spent some nice afternoons going. We did a little different format than this one. Like I said, it was online during the pandemic, but the afternoons we met up down at the Naval Postgraduate School, out here at UCM Best, and then over in La Selva Beach at Chris Bly's facility. So it was outdoor, COVID-friendly, and that turned out to be a great format. So maybe next year we'll do some more touring around. But it was through that we were able to start talking about what we were working on, what your interests were. I think you had just come on to work with Irvine down from the great state of Alaska.
Or Washington State, but yeah, home state is Alaska.
Home state of Alaska, because I remember talking about Anchorage. And that led to some follow-on conversations, and then Cody, who also came on fairly recently with Joby and was really coming on to lead this thing called the Joby Academy that we heard Bonnie mention earlier. I guess, was this the unveiling of the Joby Academy today?
Well, it's been unveiled a few places over the last year or so, but yes.
Not today, totally unveiling, but it was new to us to see a couple of those pictures up there anyhow. So you lead the Joby Academy, and we started talking, and we had this conversation going, understanding the strategic interest of the Irvine Foundation in the Salinas Valley as part of their Priority Communities program. And we said, what can be done to actually get a new job at the end of the investment? That was kind of our, target. And it was, hey, what if we could just take a small cohort and have them embed with Joby so they could be trained by the people that need them, and take them from very low skill level, entry level, maybe no experience. Maybe they have background skills that make them good candidates for being in there, and then put them through a earn while you learn program and get some employment out of it. And so that's our pilot, that's our thesis that we're gonna see if this works. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that maybe your slide is first. So maybe, Elizabeth, if you wanna talk a little bit about the Priority Communities program and build on some of this conversation, feel free to interject. I know when you're sitting up here, it feels a little funny, but feel free to.
Feels great, Josh.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pick up the mic. Great. There you go.
Thank you, Josh. And
Okay.
thank you for all that you've done to set the stage for the conversation that we're having here today. So the Priority Communities Initiative is the second newest initiative at Irvine. It was birthed right during the pandemic, so we're only about a couple years old. And it's really an $135 million commitment over 7 years to 5 cities, including Salinas, and inland California and the coast. That's really focused on 4 impact goals, or areas that we'd like to see progress. And what was exciting about this effort, having the conversation with DART and with Joby about what might be possible to pull together and build on a whole set of investments that we were already making in the region. We've invested, over time about $13 million in the region here in Central Coast. How do we start to pull these things together to start to drive towards these goals? Because part of it is you have to seed some investments. Seed investments in helping resource community-based organizations so that folks have resources to come together, to think, to learn, to engage in public processes, to engage in inclusive economic development planning. in the region, helping invest in small business ecosystem, whether that looks like El Pajaro CDC, that's on the path to becoming a CDFI, investing in minority-owned businesses here in the region, helping folks get out of predatory loan products so that their businesses can thrive here in the region, whether that looks like ventures, that's creating a holding company owned by farm workers that will spin off co-ops in different industries so that farm workers and those who are undocumented have an opportunity to negotiate for better working conditions and protections that also provide economic mobility, very important in order to create an economy that works for all in this region. And so how do we build on that and create some momentum, and what are some of the longstanding problems in the region? And so those impact goals that we've laid out are about creating more good quality jobs that have family-sustaining wages and benefits in the region. And then how do you ensure that those who are stuck in low-wage work, which is extreme income inequality in this region that is stratified by race, how do we ensure that they have opportunities to advance economically and obtain these good jobs? And so we're looking at, across these 5 communities, 21,000 new good quality jobs, 4,500 low-wage workers who get access to those jobs through training opportunities that are paid so that they can get access to those training opportunities and get into those jobs, looking at supporting 10 to 15 community-based approaches that increase the spread of these good quality jobs across these 5 sites, and then leveraging Irvine's dollars to bring in 5 times the public, private, and other philanthropic investments in the region. And so we're really excited that the investment that we made in DART through CSUMB to help support this advanced manufacturing pilot with Joby actually kind of gives us the opportunity to hit all 4 of these aims and to build on the robust investments we're already making in community-based organizations, those who are working on the small business ecosystem, and really investing in communities of color, the communities here in this region that are getting the short end of the stick and do not have access to economic opportunity.
Well, thank you. I can say that I think it was mentioned before, maybe it was Ken or Maria Elena that was talking about just the support from the Irvine Foundation has kind of been a catalyst for us connecting together, and I think taking steps to begin to get familiar with each other and our organizations and to make introductions that have already resulted in outcomes that are hopeful. So it's nice to have a strategy and a clear idea of what you're going for and that we can help work on that together. And I know Cody's happy to add on to that probably, but let me see, is there another slide here that you want to talk about, or
so this just is a way of starting to frame out what are we doing with this future of work industry play that here in the region, and really looking at how do we help build the capacity of under-resourced communities like Salinas and the broader region to test the kind of innovations so that you can attract and retain really high quality, high growth employers in the region. And as a test for what could that look like in terms of state policy, right? To keep these public dollars, public R&D dollars that help build companies here in California that then the jobs often get exported outside of California. And that
look at our GoBiz people out there.
So we're hoping to achieve a number of aims with this, and it really came from thinking about what are the unique challenges of this region, how do they apply to some of the larger challenges across the state of California, and then what are those real opportunities here that we might be able to get some momentum to capture everyone's imagination about what's possible. And then really looking at, this is a region that's rich with assets. That, you have an R&D hub here in the region, and how do you leverage just enough local economic development that can create new economic opportunity for those who have the least access to that opportunity. And so we're really excited about what it is that we've been able to do through this partnership, but the broader partnerships of folks that you'll see on the next slide that we're funding here. You can see that we're funding 30 plus partners, either directly or indirectly through intermediaries that are regranting in the region, but with a particular focus on the disparities in Salinas and El Pajaro Valley.
Fantastic. And I know that Cody's got some slides, but I will say the talk, and I'll pass this over to you. You can pass that over to Cody. The slideshow and the conversation that Bonnie brought this morning was quite, that was right on the spot, and like, you know, it described the culture. I think the culture of Joby, that particular video was just a great reflection of the values of this company. It's amazing, really, to have Joby not only being this really cool technology and a transformative thing, but then to have this culture of a company that is enabling us to kind of, you know, very actively go after this stuff, and it's aligned with your core mission. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, those aspects.
You know, I do have some slides that I'm not going to show. I'm only going to show a video. And partly because I don't want to talk anymore about Joby. Outside of the context of how this partnership might be a good framework for how we create economic mobility in this region and other regions in California and beyond. And that's really kind of what I think makes the most sense in this conversation from a Joby perspective. But one thing that I will say about the Joby culture that's really unique is we're looking at this apprenticeship, and really this apprenticeship is helping us really think through how do we hire in volume for frontline entry-level roles, like Don said, folks who commonly don't have a 4-year degree. And we're trying to figure that out, but what we do know is that we have to find the right entry points for people, and because of the nature of the vertical integration of our business, once they're in the door, once we identify that they're a good fit, we can help them get wherever they want to go within the organization. So they may start as a manufacturing apprentice and stay in manufacturing for their career with Joby. They may start as a manufacturing apprentice and end up in a totally different part of the business, like software engineering or development. There's so much opportunities because of the nature of our business, and as we shift from being just an engineering organization historically over a decade, to now we're morphing into an engineering organization that also manufactures airplanes, and then beginning in 2025, an airline as well. And so there's such a breadth of career opportunities. And so really what we need to do is get the right people in as an entry point, and then give them opportunities to grow within the company, whatever that looks like. And part of what we call Joby Aviation Academy is really, it's a culture of learning internally at Joby, where the academy helps you come into the organization, because we're creating opportunities where if you don't necessarily have explicit experience in areas that are relevant to Joby, but you have aptitude and you have interest, then we can train you up. And then if that aptitude and interest evolves into something different in the business, we can train you up again. And that's really how all of this is designed. So I'll jump over and play this video, and then we can go from there. Oh, there's the video.
Joby Aviation has partnered with local community-based organizations, high schools, and institutes of higher education to build pathways to careers in aerospace and advanced manufacturing. From education and mentorship to apprentice training, Joby is committed to making careers in aviation more accessible. One way we're doing this is through an apprenticeship program where we offer paid on-the-job training to Salinas Valley locals looking to upskill and start a new career in cutting-edge aerospace manufacturing.
The apprentices here are helping us build out the team. We have a growing manufacturing line that needs more heads in order to meet our ultimate scale goals. We know as the company scales, we need more support than there is experience in the area. So this program is actually perfect, bringing in new people who are excited about the possible roles in the future career, learn how to build the vehicles.
My goal when I started here was to get as much knowledge as I can and definitely continue to keep bettering myself and just learning more and more every day.
And I applied here because I wanted to see what it's like to make airplanes of the future.
Where do you see yourself in like 5 years?
Oh, in 5 years, flying the plane.
So those were some of the apprentices that are enrolled in the program that you saw in that video. I'll pass this back over to you, Josh. We can reference slides if we feel like we need to, but that's all I have for slides.
Yeah, great. Well, it is nice to have this working. It's, again, a pilot project that we're hoping to expand. And I know that it was probably 4 years ago that we convened an early meeting of regional interests. I know Clint was there, and some of the folks from the Workforce Development Board were there, and CSUMB and the other community colleges, with some of your colleagues, I think Amy, who was here yesterday, and we were asking, we knew that workforce was going to be a challenge here in, for a region that doesn't have an aerospace workforce, and so we were saying, what kinds of things, can we get started? And it's taken some time from all sides, but we have gotten there now, and this pilot is really functioning as a catalyst that, I'm thinking about the panel to follow ours, which will bring in some of the folks that I'm referring to who are kind of involved in the institutional workforce development side, and some of the folks from the state who are investing in workforce development, and sometimes those programs take a little longer to kind of build up, but the nimble kind of response and the speed which the Irvine money has come in has allowed us to kind of get this started. So, I guess the question that I'm leading to is kind of where does our pilot lead to? Are we looking to infuse these institutions, the community colleges, with a relevant curriculum? All of the above? Thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, for me, this goes way beyond Joby, and it's really not about Joby. It's about the individuals who are local to this region and need career mobility, and Joby just happens to be positioned to offer that to folks, and those folks are positioned to offer Joby the value that we need in terms of quality workers. And so, to me, what I hope is that this can serve as a model for how we can take a situation like we have in the Monterey Bay region, where there's not something like advanced manufacturing, and apply that to any other industry in communities like the Salinas Valley that need these types of opportunities. And so that's my hope and goal, and that's why this is so important to me to have wonderful partners like both of you, is because, like I said, this goes way beyond Joby to thinking about how do we revitalize our economy and have everyone benefit through these types of programs. And apprenticeships are not new, right? Apprenticeships have been happening for a very long time in the US and abroad, but applying a tried and true proven methodology for upskilling the workforce to new novel technology is something that on the surface isn't obvious, right? So our hiring managers who have been hiring, not in massive volume, but for the last 18 months or so been hiring manufacturing talent, they get applications that come in, and as you can expect, when Joby posts a job, we get a lot of applicants because it's a really sexy business that people want to be involved in. And when a hiring manager sees someone who's not local to this region, who has 6 months or 12 months of manufacturing experience, those are the people that rise to the top. And then you have people relocating for jobs. And when there's people that are just as trainable, have just as much aptitude, but part of it is helping that individual hiring manager in isolation recognize that there's another option and that we can give opportunities to those people that are already in our community.
Yeah, that's good insight. Maybe expand a little further on that. What are some of the sort of lessons that you have, gained through this initial hiring process? I know we've talked about a few of those, but
well, yeah. Don said something in his remarks about the Irvine Foundation's investment philosophy, which really resonated with me because it was exactly described our experience working with Liz, which was. Don mentioned how it's not a top-down, you must do these things if you want our money approach, right? And so when we were having conversations, I said to Liz, well, what are your objectives? What are you hoping to accomplish with the funding? And she said, well, these are the guidelines that we kind of look at, but what do you think? how do you think this could work? And so Pete, who you'll hear from on the next panel, and I went and talked to senior leaders at Joby. We talked to frontline leaders at Joby. We talked to people who were already in the jobs. And we really asked them, how do you think we could structure this in a way that would make it successful from a recruiting standpoint, from a training standpoint, certification standpoint. And then we came back to, and Josh helped us workshop it, of course, and we talked through how we might structure this. And essentially Liz said, hey, that seems like it might work. And so we were empowered to structure this in a way that we had buy-in across the board from folks internally at Joby. Because if I had gone in and said, hey, you have to do these things, and your incentive is that there's some money to help us do it, it would have gotten done, but the viability of having meaningful outcomes, of these people actually converting into full-time positions, of this resulting in us using apprenticeships going forward, none of that I think would have happened if we hadn't had the autonomy to kind of think about how can we both benefit the individuals, but also make sure that this is beneficial for Joby as well, because that's what makes it a sustainable hiring and development practice. So, but a few interesting takeaways were we've working with local groups like Cody and Mujeres en Acción and Rancho Cielo, and certainly many other folks that you've introduced us to, Josh. We've learned some really what's seemingly obvious things about the recruiting and onboarding process that were preventing us from being able to tap into the local workforce. And one example that I'll give is resumes. So we found that we were talking to local organizations, and they would say, hey, I know so-and-so who's really interested. And then, a few days would go by, a week would go by, and we'd follow up, and we'd say, so-and-so didn't apply. And they'd say, oh, they said they were going to, and I'll follow up. And then it turned out that they didn't apply because they didn't have a resume. And our recruiting system requires that they upload a resume. So how does that work? If you're hiring people and you're telling them this is an apprenticeship, you don't need experience, but upload a resume. It's kind of backwards, right? And to our recruiting team, who all has resumes, they think everybody has a resume. But a lot of folks don't, or if they do, they're too embarrassed to upload it, or maybe they can't figure out how to upload it from their phone, and they don't have access to a computer. So there's all of these barriers that seem so obvious now, but that weren't obvious to certainly me or my team, but then there's other teams involved. We have a recruiting team that does the recruiting that we're deeply embedded with now through this apprenticeship. So things as simple as that didn't really surface until we actually started this really intentional approach. And it was these partnerships where people would say things and we'd say, oh, we'd never thought of that before. And it's made a huge difference in being able to really open up this opportunity to the types of people that we've been wanting to reach that we haven't been able to access before.
So Liz, one of the things that's been nice for me in working with you is that you've brought in these other folks who you're working with, like our friends from Stockton, for example, who are working on kind of similar challenges. And I wonder if there are any of the experiences that you've gained here, insights maybe that you've been able to bring to other areas that you're working, or other members of your team that would be interesting to talk about.
Thank you, Josh. Yes, and a shout out to our partners here with Edge Collaborative from Stockton and Reinvent Stockton Foundation, working to achieve similar outcomes in Stockton around a climate jobs framework. We're finding that as we're starting to talk about the story, and also as word got out about the partnership, that there are others across the state who are also in these innovation sectors, or sectors that are being disrupted by innovation or emergent, that are also trying to grapple with how do you build a workforce pipeline using some of the existing infrastructure that's there, whether it's the career and technical education programs, the community colleges, and how do you start to put together something that can scale to meet how quickly some of these businesses need to be able to scale up. And so folks are watching this effort and are eager to learn and to see write-ups about what are some of the learnings, and can they take those learnings and or take the model to use it. And so it's been really gratifying doing this work. There are so many projects like that across the 5 priority communities where they're so replicable. and that folks are building them in ways that they're willing to share so that other communities who are also facing some of these similar challenges can take and learn from these examples. We're also finding, as we're starting to talk about this in philanthropic spaces with other funders across the country, that this approach is also unique. There are a lot of funders who may be doing some economic development work or maybe doing workforce, but aren't really bridging things the way that that we're framed to do that in priority communities, but really the ways in which our partners, our valued partners on the ground, are forced to come together and find new and innovative solutions in order to forge a path forward. And then by being able to follow that up with some real resources and back that local leadership, we're able to lift up those examples for other parts of the country that are also grappling with some of these similar challenges. So it's been really exciting, and I'm excited to see what comes out in terms of helping influence the state, in terms of state and local policy. I also think that there are some examples that are going to emerge that maybe you can speak to, Josh, around partnerships with veteran affairs in this region in terms of access to workforce and training, also the partnership with the Monterey Bay Workforce Development Board, and offering to pitch in to this effort as well.
All those are great examples, Liz. Thank you. You know, with the rich defense history here in Monterey, and really with a nod to the legacy of Fort Ord, and my work with the Fort Ord Reuse Authority, providing some initial points of contact, you know, we have been outreaching to the Monterey County Veterans Affairs. Peter and I attended a Work for Warriors event not long ago with where Congressman Panetta was there. And, you know, the veterans community is a great source of talent, that this is a unique opportunity here. So part of our program of work that we outlined includes, you know, strengthening those connections, and so we're working on that. Also, the Workforce Development Board, including the folks, Robert Meyer, who's coming up from the California Employment Training Panel later, have come on as strong partners. I think, you know, again, the momentum that the Irvine investment has provided gives these other entities confidence and a sense of, hey, there's something happening here that we can build on. So I think it's really a catalytic thing that has great potential. So I think it's up to us and the people, the teams we're working with, to kind of make it happen and have some of those more success stories to bring back in the months and years ahead, and certainly by our fall 2023 Symposium, which we'll be inviting you all back to. So I think with that, it looks like our time's up, and thank you for coming up and talking about our project.
Thank you for the invitation.